A charitable millionaire gave out cookies, hot chocolate, and blankets to twins on Christmas. And the next day the police knocked on his door. Snow fell softly on the streets of London, covering the city with a quiet white mantle. Jean-Pierre Dubois, a 60-year-old man with graying hair and kind eyes, walked alone through the decorated streets on Christmas Eve. His expensive overcoat and elegant posture contrasted with the melancholy expression on his face. Festive lights twinkled in the shop windows, reflecting in Jean-Pierre's tired eyes. He sighed, feeling the weight of yet another lonely Christmas. Despite his fortune and the respect his philanthropic work had earned him, something always seemed to be missing this time of year. Suddenly, a movement at the corner of his eye caught his attention. There, on a bench in Trafalgar Square, two small figures were huddled, visibly trembling. Jean-Pierre frowned, intrigued. Who would leave children alone on a night like this? Approaching cautiously, he saw two frightened pairs of eyes watching him. They were twins, a boy and a girl, no more than 6 years old. Their faces were dirty and their lips trembled from the cold. "Hello," Jean-Pierre said softly, crouching down to their level. "Are you lost?" The children curled up even more, not responding. Jean-Pierre's heart clenched. What could have happened to these little ones? "Don't be afraid," he continued, his voice gentle. "My name is Jean-Pierre. Can I help you?" The girl, with large blue eyes full of tears, finally spoke. "We're hungry," she whispered. Without hesitation, Jean-Pierre stood up. "Wait here. I'll be back in a moment." He ran to the nearest bakery, still open for last-minute Christmas preparations. Minutes later, he returned with a bag full of warm cookies, 2 steaming mugs of hot chocolate, and soft blankets. The children looked distrustfully at the items, but the irresistible aroma of the cookies made their stomachs growl audibly. "It's all right," Jean-Pierre assured them, offering the cookies. "How you can eat." With trembling hands, they took the cookies and began to devour them. Jean-Pierre watched, a mixture of compassion and concern growing in his chest. As they ate, he tried again. "What are your names?" Between bites, the boy answered. "I'm Lucas. She's Amélie." "Lucas and Amélie," Jean-Pierre repeated softly. "What are you doing here alone on Christmas Eve?" The children exchanged nervous glances, their eyes filling with tears again. Amélie hugged her brother, hiding her face. "It's all right," Jean-Pierre reassured them. "You don't have to tell me now, but I can't leave you out here in the cold. I have an apartment not far from here. What do you think about going there, where it's warm and safe?" Lucas looked at his sister, then back at Jean-Pierre. "Can we trust him?" he whispered to Amélie. Jean-Pierre felt his heart tighten. What must these children have gone through to be so distrustful? Amélie studied Jean-Pierre for a long moment, her blue eyes seeming to pierce his soul. Then, slowly, she nodded. "All right," Jean-Pierre smiled, relieved. "Let's go." He helped the children wrap themselves in the blankets and took their small hands in his. As they walked down the street illuminated by Christmas decorations, Jean-Pierre couldn't help but notice how their tiny hands clutched his firmly, as if afraid he might disappear at any moment. The doorman of the luxurious building where Jean-Pierre lived raised his eyebrows upon seeing his employer arrive with 2 ragged children, but made no comment. In the elevator, Jean-Pierre observed the twins through the mirror's reflection. Their faces were a mixture of fear, exhaustion, and a touch of hope. What had happened to them? Where were their parents? Why were they alone on Christmas Eve? When the elevator doors opened to the penthouse apartment, the children's eyes widened in astonishment. The panoramic view of London, all lit up and covered in snow, was breathtaking. "Welcome," Jean-Pierre said, guiding them inside. "Let's warm up and rest. Tomorrow we'll sort all this out." While preparing a hot bath and separating some clean clothes that might fit the children, Jean-Pierre couldn't stop thinking. His lonely Christmas had turned into something completely unexpected. Who were these children? What was their story? One thing he knew for sure: his life had just changed forever. And as he heard Amélie and Lucas's muffled giggles coming from the bathroom, for the first time in many years, Jean-Pierre felt his heart fill with a warmth that had nothing to do with the lit fireplace. The mystery of those 2 small souls, lost on Christmas night, intrigued and worried him. But one thing was certain. He would do everything in his power to protect them and find out the truth behind their frightened looks. That night, while the snow continued to fall softly outside, Jean-Pierre fell asleep in his armchair, keeping watch over the twins' restless sleep. Little did he know that this was only the beginning of a journey that would test not only his compassion, but also his courage and determination. The Christmas morning sun filtered through the curtains of Jean-Pierre's luxurious apartment, casting a golden glow on the small bodies curled up on the sofa. Amélie and Lucas slept deeply, their faces finally at peace after a restless night's sleep. Jean-Pierre, who had barely slept, watched them from the kitchen as he prepared an elaborate breakfast. The aroma of freshly baked croissants and hot chocolate soon filled the air, prompting a slight stir in the children. "Good morning, little ones," Jean-Pierre called softly, approaching with a tray. "Merry Christmas." Amélie's eyes opened first, wide and confused for a moment, before they focused on Jean-Pierre. A small, hesitant smile appeared on her lips. "Are you hungry?" he asked, placing the tray on the coffee table. Lucas sat up abruptly, as if awakened from a nightmare. His wild look calmed when he saw the food, and he nodded vigorously. As the children ate ravenously, Jean-Pierre sat in the opposite armchair, studying them attentively. Daylight revealed details the night had hidden: small bruises on Lucas's arms, a healed cut on Amélie's forehead. His heart clenched. "Children," he began gently once they finished eating, "can we talk a little about how you ended up in Trafalgar Square?" The silence that followed was heavy, laden with fear and hesitation. Amélie looked at Lucas, who bit his lip and lowered his gaze. "It's all right," Jean-Pierre assured them. "You're safe here. I just want to help." Amélie took a deep breath, her blue eyes filling with tears. "Our mother," she began, her voice trembling. "She left us there." Jean-Pierre felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. "Your mother left you in the square." Lucas nodded, finally finding his voice. "She said she was going to buy food. Promised she would be right back. But she never came back," Amélie whispered, a tear running down her cheek. "How long did you wait?" Jean-Pierre asked, dreading the answer. "Many days," Lucas replied, his voice small and frightened. "We were so hungry and cold." Jean-Pierre struggled to maintain his composure in the face of this horror. How could a mother abandon her children like that? "What is your mother's name?" he asked softly. "Céline," Amélie replied. "Mummy Céline." Jean-Pierre nodded, absorbing the information. "And your father?" The children exchanged confused looks. "We don't have a father," Lucas said simply. More questions revealed a fragmented and disturbing picture of the children's lives. They had lived in a small apartment with their mother, who often left them alone for hours, sometimes days. Céline drank something that made her act strangely, screaming and breaking things. "She was very sad," Amélie explained, nervously fiddling with the hem of the borrowed shirt. "Sometimes she hugged us and cried, saying she was sorry," Lucas added. "Other times she shouted that she wished she never had us." Each word was like a knife to Jean-Pierre's heart. He fought to keep his voice calm and comforting. "You were very brave. It wasn't your fault, do you understand?" The children nodded hesitantly, but it was clear that years of neglect and emotional abuse had left deep scars. Jean-Pierre got up, unable to sit still. "I'm going to make some calls," he said. "We'll sort this out, I promise." In his office, Jean-Pierre dialed his lawyer's number, explaining the situation quickly. Then he called social services and the police. With each call, the gravity of the situation became clearer, as did the legal complexity of the case. Returning to the living room, he found Amélie and Lucas hugging on the sofa, looking out the window at snow-covered London. The scene of apparent normality painfully contrasted with the trauma just revealed. "Hey," he called softly, sitting down next to them. "I'd like to know more about you. What do you like to do?" Slowly, between halting stories of life with Céline, the children began to open up. Amélie loved drawing, her eyes shining as she spoke of colors and shapes. Lucas was fascinated by cars, able to identify models just by the sound of the engine. Jean-Pierre listened attentively, his heart breaking and warming at the same time. Despite everything they had been through, there was still a spark of innocence and hope in those abandoned little hearts. As the afternoon wore on, Jean-Pierre found himself increasingly involved with the twins. He took them on a tour of the apartment, showing them his art collection and the spectacular view of the city. The children's hesitant laughter was like music to his ears. However, the reality of the situation hovered over them like a dark cloud. Jean-Pierre knew he couldn't just keep the children there, no matter how much he wanted to protect them. There would be legal issues to resolve and investigations to conduct. When night fell, Jean-Pierre tucked the children into the guest bed, reading them a story until they fell asleep. Watching their relaxed faces in slumber, he made a silent promise. "I won't abandon you," he whispered. "We'll find out what happened to your mother, and I'll do everything I can to ensure you're safe and happy." Back in his office, Jean-Pierre spent hours on the phone and online, researching custody laws, adoption procedures, and resources for traumatized children. His mind spun with possibilities and concerns. Where was Céline now? Why would she abandon her children? Was there more to this story than two innocent eyes could see? Jean-Pierre knew the following days would be crucial. He would have to navigate a maze of bureaucracy and emotions, always putting the well-being of Amélie and Lucas first. As he prepared to sleep, Jean-Pierre reflected on how his life had changed dramatically in less than 24 hours. The Christmas that began solitary and melancholy was now full of purpose and challenges. Lying in bed, he could hear the children's soft breathing in the next room. A feeling of protection and determination washed over him. No matter what happened, he would be there for Amélie and Lucas. They would no longer be abandoned hearts, not if Jean-Pierre Dubois could help it. The persistent sound of the doorbell echoed through the apartment, jolting Jean-Pierre from a restless sleep. He looked at the clock, 7:30 in the morning. Who could it be so early on the day after Christmas? Throwing on a robe, Jean-Pierre opened the door and was confronted by two police officers with serious expressions. "Mr. Jean-Pierre Dubois?" asked the taller one, his tone grave and authoritative. "Yes, that's me," Jean-Pierre answered, feeling a knot form in his stomach. "How can I help you?" "We received reports of two abandoned children in Trafalgar Square on Christmas Eve," explained the officer. "Witnesses say they saw a man matching your description taking them away. Do you know anything about this?" Jean-Pierre's heart raced. He knew this moment would come, but he hadn't expected it so soon. "Yes, officer," he began, keeping his voice calm. "I found the children last night. They were alone, cold and hungry. I brought them here to keep them safe." The officers exchanged skeptical looks. "And why didn't you contact the authorities immediately?" asked the second officer, his voice laden with suspicion. Before Jean-Pierre could answer, a noise came from the hallway. Amélie and Lucas, drawn by the voices, appeared, their eyes wide with fear at the sight of the police. "Who are they, Jean-Pierre?" Lucas asked, his voice trembling. "They are police officers," Jean-Pierre replied softly, extending his hand to the children. "It's all right." But Amélie and Lucas didn't seem convinced. In an instant, they ran to Jean-Pierre, clinging to his legs as if their lives depended on it. The scene didn't go unnoticed by the officers. Their expressions softened slightly, but suspicion remained. "Mr. Dubois, we need you to come with us for questioning," said the taller officer. "The children will be temporarily placed under social services care." "No!" Amélie shouted, tightening her grip on Jean-Pierre's leg. "We don't want to go!" Jean-Pierre felt his heart break. He knelt down, meeting the children's eyes. "Listen, little ones," he said softly. "I promise I'll fix this. You have to go with these officers for now, but I'll do everything I can to bring you back. Do you trust me?" With tears in their eyes, Amélie and Lucas nodded reluctantly. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Social workers arrived to take the children, who cried and struggled. Jean-Pierre felt as if his heart were being torn out watching them leave. At the station, Jean-Pierre was taken to a stark interrogation room. The detective who questioned him didn't seem impressed by his social status or philanthropic record. "Mr. Dubois, understand that your situation looks quite suspicious," said the detective, flipping through a folder. "A single man with no children takes two unknown kids to his home in the middle of the night. That raises a lot of red flags." Jean-Pierre took a deep breath, fighting to remain calm. "I understand your concern, detective, but I acted only with the intention of protecting those children. They were alone, scared, and freezing. What else could I do? Contacting the police immediately would be a good start, the detective countered. I acknowledge that I should have done that, Jean-Pierre admitted, but at that moment, my only concern was Amélie and Lucas's immediate well-being. The interrogation went on for hours. Jean-Pierre repeated his story several times, answering questions about his personal life, his motives, and his interaction with the children. He provided names of contacts who could vouch for his character and detailed what Amélie and Lucas had told him about their situation. Finally, exhausted and emotionally drained, Jean-Pierre was released, but with a clear warning that the investigation would continue. Leaving the station, he was greeted by a crowd of reporters. Apparently, the story of a philanthropic millionaire involved in a possible child kidnapping on Christmas had leaked to the press. Mr. Dubois, is it true you kidnapped 2 children on Christmas Eve? What is your relationship with these children? Do you deny allegations of improper behavior? The questions came from all sides, camera flashes momentarily blinding him. Jean-Pierre lowered his head and pushed through the crowd, refusing to comment. At home, he collapsed on the sofa, head in hands. How could an act of kindness have turned into something so complicated? More importantly, where were Amélie and Lucas now? Were they scared? Feeling betrayed? The phone rang, pulling him from his dark thoughts. It was his lawyer. Jean-Pierre, the situation is delicate but manageable, said the lawyer. The children are in a temporary social services shelter. I'm working to ensure you can visit them soon. And what about their mother? Jean-Pierre asked. Any news about Céline? Not yet, the lawyer replied. The police are investigating, but so far, no trace of her. After hanging up, Jean-Pierre walked to the window, looking out at a city that now seemed strangely hostile. He thought of Amélie and Lucas, alone in a strange place, probably scared and confused. At that moment, Jean-Pierre made a decision. No matter the cost to his reputation or how difficult it would be, he would do everything in his power to protect those children and uncover the truth about what happened to their mother. Picking up the phone again, he made a call. Elise, it's Jean-Pierre Dubois. I need your help. I have a case that requires your investigative skills. As night fell over London, Jean-Pierre prepared for a battle he never imagined he'd fight. A battle not only against bureaucracy and skepticism, but against timing. To save 2 little hearts that in just 2 days had become incredibly precious to him. Dawn had brought complications, but also fierce determination. Jean-Pierre Dubois, the lonely millionaire, now had a purpose that went beyond any material wealth, and he would not rest until he saw justice done and those children safe again. Elise Rousseau's office was a stark contrast to Jean-Pierre's luxurious apartment. Dusty piles of files covered every available surface, and the aroma of strong coffee filled the air. The retired detective, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and graying hair, listened attentively as Jean-Pierre recounted the events of recent days. I understand your concern, Mr. Dubois, Elise said, leaning forward in her worn chair. But I must warn you, missing person cases are rarely simple, especially when children are involved. Jean-Pierre nodded gravely. I'm aware. That's why I need your experience. These children, they affected me in a way I can't explain. I need to find out what happened to their mother. Elise studied Jean-Pierre for a moment, her penetrating eyes seeming to gauge not only his words, but his essence. Finally, she sighed and stood up. Very well. Let's get started. First, we need to establish a timeline and gather all possible information about this Céline. In the days that followed, Elise dove headfirst into the investigation. She combed through police records, spoke to local shopkeepers, and interviewed residents of the area where Amélie and Lucas were found. Jean-Pierre, for his part, used his influence to speed up the bureaucracy and obtain permission to visit the children at the temporary shelter. The first visit to the shelter was emotionally draining. Amélie and Lucas ran to Jean-Pierre as soon as they saw him, clinging to him as if afraid he might vanish at any moment. Did you come to get us? Lucas asked, his eyes full of hope. Jean-Pierre's heart clenched. Not yet, little one. I'm working on it. I promise. But I came to see how you are and talk a bit more about your mother. Can you tell me more about her? The children exchanged hesitant looks before Amélie spoke. Mummy was often very sad. She drank a liquid that made her act strangely. What kind of liquid? Jean-Pierre asked gently. It was brown and smelled strong, Lucas added. Sometimes it made her happy, but then she would get really angry or cry a lot. Jean-Pierre felt a knot in his stomach. Their description made it clear Céline struggled with alcoholism. This explained a lot, but also raised more questions. And in the last days before you ended up alone in the square, how was she acting? Amélie frowned, concentrating. She was different. She talked to herself a lot, said they were coming, that we needed to hide. This new information worried Jean-Pierre even more. Paranoia, hallucinations. The picture forming was increasingly disturbing. After the visit, Jean-Pierre met with Elise in a discreet café to share what he had discovered from the children. Alcoholism is definitely a factor, Elise murmured, making notes. But this paranoid behavior is concerning. It could indicate untreated mental health issues or... She hesitated. Or what? Jean-Pierre pressed. Or she could really have been in danger, Elise concluded. We can't rule out any possibility at this stage. The investigation continued, with Elise following every possible lead. She scoured hospital records, rehab clinics, and even homeless shelters. Jean-Pierre, in turn, used his contacts to obtain information about Céline through less conventional channels. It was during one of their regular meetings that Elise dropped a bombshell. There are no recent records of a mother reported missing with twin children, she said, her voice filled with frustration. It's as if Céline and the children didn't exist in the eyes of the system. Jean-Pierre felt a chill run down his spine. How is that possible? Elise shook her head. Several possibilities, none of them good. She could have been using a false name or Jean-Pierre insisted, dreading the answer. Or someone might have gone to great lengths to erase her tracks, Elise said grimly. The implication hung heavily between them. What initially seemed like a case of abandonment was turning into something far more sinister. Jean-Pierre spent sleepless nights, his mind full of theories and worries. He thought of Amélie and Lucas, their frightened yet hopeful faces. He thought of Céline, a woman he had never met, but whose absence had created a mystery consuming his days. On one of those sleepless nights, an idea struck him. He picked up the phone and dialed Elise's number, not caring about the late hour. Madame Rousseau, sorry to wake you, but I had a thought. What if we start looking not for Céline specifically, but for similar cases of abandoned children? Maybe there's a pattern we're not seeing. There was a moment of silence on the other end before Elise answered, her voice now fully awake. Mr. Dubois, you might be onto something important. I'll start researching immediately. In the following days, Jean-Pierre divided his time between visits to the shelter, where Amélie and Lucas longed for his presence, and long strategy sessions with Elise. Each new discovery seemed to raise more questions than answers, but Jean-Pierre refused to give up. One afternoon, while reviewing police reports, Elise let out a gasp of surprise. Look at this, she said, pushing a file towards Jean-Pierre. Over the last 2 years, there have been 3 other cases of children found alone in squares or parks. In all cases, the mothers were single and had a history of problems with alcohol or drugs. Jean-Pierre's heart sped up. Do you think they're related? Elise nodded slowly. It's a possibility we can't ignore. This might be bigger than we initially imagined. At that moment, looking at the scattered files and Elise's determined face, Jean-Pierre was sure he had stumbled upon something much larger than a simple search for a missing mother. He was about to uncover a mystery that could have ramifications beyond his comprehension. But one thing was certain. He would not stop until he discovered the truth, no matter where it led him. For Amélie, for Lucas, and for all the other children who might be in danger, Jean-Pierre was willing to go all the way. The search had only just begun, and the path ahead promised to be full of dangers and shocking revelations. But Jean-Pierre Dubois was ready to face every obstacle, driven by a determination he never knew he possessed until 2 abandoned little hearts crossed his path that fateful Christmas night. The sound of muffled crying echoed through the halls of the temporary shelter. Jean-Pierre, who had just arrived for another visit, felt his heart tighten as he recognized Amélie's voice. Guided by a social worker, He found the girl curled up in a corner, hugging her knees and sobbing. "Amélie," he called softly, kneeling beside her. "What happened, little one?" The girl raised her eyes, red and swollen. "I had a bad dream again," she whispered. Jean-Pierre opened his arms, and Amélie threw herself into them, clinging to him as if her life depended on it. He held her tightly, feeling her small body tremble. "Do you want to tell me about the dream?" he asked gently. Amélie hesitated, then began to speak, her voice broken by sobs. Mummy was shouting, breaking things. Her eyes were strange. She didn't look like Mummy. Jean-Pierre stroked the girl's hair, his heart breaking at the pain in her voice. "It was just a dream, Amélie. You're safe now." But both knew it wasn't just a dream. It was a memory, a painful reality that haunted the child. Lucas, who had been watching from a distance, approached timidly, holding a piece of paper. "I made a drawing," he said, extending it to Jean-Pierre. The man took the paper, feeling a knot form in his throat as he saw the content. It was a crude drawing of a room with stick figures representing the children huddled in a corner. On the floor, several brown bottles lay scattered, and a larger figure, presumably Céline, stood in the center, lines coming from her mouth representing screams. It's our home," Lucas explained hesitantly. "Before we came here." Jean-Pierre swallowed hard, fighting to maintain composure. "You were very brave to show me this," he said, pulling Lucas into a hug alongside Amélie. "Thank you for trusting me." Later that day, Jean-Pierre met with Elise in her office, sharing what he had learned from the children. "Amélie's nightmares and Lucas's drawings paint a grim picture," Elise commented, examining the drawing. "Clearly, Céline's alcoholism had a profound impact on them." Jean-Pierre nodded gravely. "What else did you find out about her?" Elise took a thick folder from her desk. "I found records of several stints Céline had in rehab clinics over the years. The first was about 7 years ago, just before the children were born." She opened the folder, revealing a series of medical reports and admission forms. She made several attempts to stay sober, but always relapsed after a few months. Jean-Pierre frowned, flipping through the documents. "What about jobs, family?" Elise shook her head. "Céline seems to have been a solitary person, no record of close family. As for jobs, she had several over the years, but never stayed long. I found records of at least 5 different jobs in the last 3 years, all ending abruptly for unspecified reasons. Probably related to her alcoholism," Jean-Pierre murmured. "Most likely," Elise agreed. "But there's more, Jean-Pierre. I managed to speak with the social worker assigned to Amélie and Lucas's case. She expressed serious concerns about possible neglect in their history." Jean-Pierre felt a wave of anger and sadness. "What kind of neglect?" Elise sighed heavily. "Apparently, there were several anonymous reports over the years. Neighbors reporting screams, children left alone for long periods, that sort of thing. But every time social services investigated, Céline managed to pull herself together just enough to avoid the children being removed." Jean-Pierre stood up, unable to remain seated. He walked to the window, looking out at the city without really seeing it. "How could this happen? How did no one do anything?" "Unfortunately, it's more common than we'd like," Elise answered softly. "The system is overburdened, and often things only reach a critical point when it's too late." Jean-Pierre turned, determination shining in his eyes. "Well, it won't be too late this time. We'll find Céline and ensure Amélie and Lucas are safe." Elise nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. "You really care about these children, don't you?" "More than I ever imagined possible," Jean-Pierre admitted. They've changed something in me, Elise. I can't explain it, but I know I need to protect them." In the days that followed, Jean-Pierre and Elise worked tirelessly, piecing together a puzzle of Céline's life. Each new piece revealed more about her struggle with inner demons and how it affected Amélie and Lucas. During his visits to the shelter, Jean-Pierre noticed subtle changes in the children. Amélie, though still haunted by nightmares, began to open up more and even smiling occasionally. Lucas channeled his emotions into art, creating increasingly detailed drawings of his memories. One afternoon, while coloring together, Lucas looked at Jean-Pierre with serious eyes. "Will you take us home?" The question caught Jean-Pierre by surprise. Aisha, I'm doing everything I can to make sure you are safe and happy, he replied carefully. But what about Mummy? Amélie asked, her voice small and uncertain. Jean-Pierre felt his heart break. How could he explain the complexity of the situation to such young children? We're looking for her, he said finally. And in the meantime, I'm here for you both. Always. The children seemed to accept this, returning to their drawings. But Jean-Pierre couldn't help noticing the shadow of worry still lingering over them. That night, reflecting on the day, Jean-Pierre realized how deeply Céline's alcoholism had affected Amélie and Lucas. It wasn't just the traumatic memories or nightmares. It was the constant uncertainty, the fear of abandonment, the struggle to understand why their mother sometimes seemed like a stranger. He picked up the phone, dialing Elise's number. "We need to intensify our search," he said, as soon as she answered. "This isn't just about finding Céline now. It's about breaking this cycle of pain and uncertainty for Amélie and Lucas." "I agree," Elise replied, her voice full of determination. "I have some new leads we can follow tomorrow. We won't give up, Jean-Pierre. For these children, we'll go to the end." As he hung up, Jean-Pierre looked at a picture of Amélie and Lucas he kept on his desk. Their shy smiles, their eyes filled with hope despite everything they had been through. He made a silent promise to them and to himself. No matter how painful the memories or how difficult the road ahead, he would be there to help them heal, grow, and above all, feel loved and safe. The past might be a dark shadow, but the future, Jean-Pierre swore, would be bright for Amélie and Lucas. The afternoon sun cast long shadows over the rundown neighborhood as Jean-Pierre and Elise walked down the narrow street. The worn buildings and cracked sidewalks told a story of neglect and hardship. "It's here," Elise said, stopping in front of a decrepit apartment building that looked on the verge of collapse. Apartment 3B, according to the children's descriptions and the records I found. Jean-Pierre felt a knot in his stomach as he looked at the peeling facade and dirty windows. It was hard to imagine Amélie and Lucas living in such a place. Carefully, they entered the building. The smell of mold and decay hit them immediately. Climbing the creaking stairs, they reached the third floor. The door to apartment 3B was ajar, swinging slightly in the breeze from a broken corridor window. "Ready?" Jean-Pierre asked, looking at Elise. She nodded, her face a mask of professional determination. "Let's go in." The apartment's interior was a scene of chaos frozen in time. Cheap furniture was scattered around, some pieces broken, empty bottles covered almost every surface, confirming Lucas's drawings. Marks on the walls silently told stories of anger and despair. "My God," Jean-Pierre murmured, his heart heavy. "How can someone live like this?" Elise, who had seen similar scenes in her long career, answered softly, "Addiction does terrible things to people, Jean-Pierre. It turns their lives into a waking nightmare." They moved carefully through the apartment, documenting everything with photos and notes. The kitchen was a disaster of dirty dishes and spoiled food. The bathroom was no better, with expired medications scattered on the floor. It was when they reached the children's room that the atmosphere changed drastically. In stark contrast to the rest of the apartment, this room was an oasis of order and care. The beds were made, though with worn sheets. A few toys, well used, were organized on shelves. On the walls, colorful drawings created an improvised mural of hope. They created their own sanctuary, Elise observed, her voice charged with emotion. Jean-Pierre approached one of the beds, noticing a worn teddy bear perched on the pillow. He picked it up gently, imagining Amélie or Lucas clinging to it during nights of fear and uncertainty. "We need to get these children out of here permanently," he said, his voice firm with resolve. Elise, examining a desk in the corner, called for his attention. "Jean-Pierre, come see this." She had found a stack of notebooks hidden in a drawer. Opening them, it quickly became clear they were Céline's diaries. Carefully, they began to read. The pages were filled with a shaky handwriting, sometimes almost illegible, other times painfully clear. It was a vivid record of Céline's struggle with alcoholism and her conflicted love for her children. Jean-Pierre read aloud a particularly wrenching passage. "Today I promised myself I'd stop drinking, for my angels, They deserve a better mother. But then Lucas knocked over a glass and the noise... God, the noise made me want to scream. Before I knew it, I was holding a bottle again. Why am I so weak? Why can't I be the mother they deserve? Elise placed a comforting hand on Jean-Pierre's shoulder, who struggled to hold back tears. It's a terrible disease, she said softly. Céline clearly loved her children, but the addiction was stronger. They continued reading, finding a pattern of recovery attempts, followed by devastating relapses. Céline wrote of her shame, her despair, and her constant fear of losing the children. One of the last entries, dated just a few weeks before Céline disappeared, caught Jean-Pierre's attention. They are watching me. I know it. I see their looks on the street, hear their whispers. They say they'll take my babies. I can't let that happen. I need to protect them, even if that means... No, I can't even think about it. But what if it's the only way? She was growing paranoid, Elise observed, frowning. This might explain why she left the children in the square. Maybe she thought she was protecting them from some imagined threat. Jean-Pierre nodded slowly, feeling emotionally drained. But where did she go afterward? Elise continued searching the apartment for clues. In the main bedroom, she made another disturbing discovery. Jean-Pierre, look at this, she called, holding a handful of crumpled papers found under the mattress. They were leaflets for homeless shelters and free rehab clinics. Some had addresses circled, with scribbled notes in the margins. Do you think she planned to seek help? Jean-Pierre asked, a spark of hope in his voice. Elise considered, it's possible. Or maybe she was considering these options in case she lost the apartment. Either way, it gives us some places to start looking. As they continued exploring, Jean-Pierre couldn't stop thinking about Céline. The woman in the diaries was so different from the monstrous figure he had initially imagined. She was broken, desperate, fighting demons that seemed invincible, yet she still loved her children deeply. Elise, he said finally, we need to find her. Not just for the children, but for her as well. She needs help. Elise looked at him with a mix of admiration and concern. Jean-Pierre, I understand how you feel, but I must remind you, our priority is the children's well-being. Finding Céline is important, but we can't lose sight of what's best for them. Jean-Pierre nodded slowly, recognizing the wisdom in her words. You're right, of course, but if we can help Céline too, we'll do our best, Elise assured him. But let's take one step at a time. When they finally left the apartment, the sun was setting, casting an orange glow over the worn neighborhood. Jean-Pierre felt emotionally drained, but also more determined than ever. What do we do now? He asked as they got into the car. I think it's time to share some of these discoveries with Amélie and Lucas, Elise replied. It might help them process their feelings and maybe give us more clues about Céline's whereabouts. That afternoon, at the shelter, Jean-Pierre and Elise sat with the children, carefully spreading out some of the photos and drawings they had found. The reaction was immediate and intense. Amélie picked up a photo of Céline smiling and hugged it to her chest, silent tears running down her face. Lucas, on the other hand, was fascinated by his sister's old drawings, pointing out details he remembered. That was Mummy's favorite blouse, he said, indicating a sketch. She said it brought luck. Jean-Pierre watched closely, noting every reaction, every whispered comment between the siblings. It was painful, but also cathartic. The children were, for the first time, truly talking about their life before the square. Amélie was the one who asked the question that hung in the air. Did you find Mummy? Jean-Pierre exchanged a glance with Elise before answering gently. Not yet, dear, but we're getting closer. Can you remember more about the last days with her? Any detail might be important. The children grew thoughtful for a moment. Then Lucas spoke up. She talked a lot about a special place. A place where we'd be safe. Amélie nodded vigorously. Yes, she said it was our secret, just ours. Jean-Pierre felt his heart race. Could this be the clue they were looking for? Do you remember anything else about this place? Any detail? The children frowned, concentrating. There was water, Amélie said finally. Mummy talked about the sound of water. Elise took quick notes, her mind already working through the possibilities. That's excellent, children. You're being very brave and helping us a lot." As they left the shelter, Jean-Pierre felt renewed despite the emotional turmoil of the day. The memories of the abandoned home, the children's reactions, all blended in his mind, forming a complex puzzle. "I think we're on the right track, Elise," he said, as they got into the car. "Each piece we find brings us closer to Céline." Elise nodded, a small smile on her lips. "I agree, and our next stop is that convenience store. Who knows what else we'll discover?" As they drove through the streets of London, Jean-Pierre couldn't help feeling a mixture of hope and apprehension. The House of Memories had revealed so much: love, pain, hope, and despair. And somewhere out there, Céline awaited discovery, carrying her own burden of memories and regrets. The search continued, driven by the desire to heal broken hearts and reunite a shattered family. And Jean-Pierre knew, deep in his heart, that he wouldn't rest until the last piece of the puzzle was in place. "Dear parents, I know it's been years since we last spoke. Shame keeps me from calling. How can I explain what I've become? You dreamed of so much for me, and I failed in every way. But I want you to know I'm trying. For Amélie and Lucas, I'm trying to be better. Maybe one day I'll have the courage to send this letter. Maybe one day I can look you in the eyes again without seeing disappointment." Jean-Pierre felt hot tears running down his cheeks. The pain and regret in Céline's words were palpable. Elise, noticing Jean-Pierre's emotional state, gently took the letters. "I'll catalogue these. Why don't you continue searching the children's room?" Grateful for the distraction, Jean-Pierre went into the room that Amélie and Lucas once called home. There, among the dusty toys and faded drawings on the walls, he found more evidence of Céline's complicated love for her children. A children's diary, hidden under one of the mattresses, revealed entries written in a child's awkward handwriting. "Mummy cried again today. She said sorry lots of times. I said it's okay, but it's not. I wish she'd stop drinking that bad liquid." Jean-Pierre closed the diary, his heart heavy. The children had carried a burden no child should bear. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Elise made her own discoveries. "Jean-Pierre," she called, "I found something interesting." She held a stack of receipts, most from a nearby convenience store. Most are for alcohol purchases, but look at the dates. The latest one is just 3 days before the children were found in Trafalgar Square. Jean-Pierre examined the receipts, a spark of hope lighting up. "Do you think the store owner might have seen Céline recently?" Elise nodded. "It's possible. Definitely worth investigating." They continued their meticulous search of the apartment, each discovery adding a new layer to the complex story of Céline and her children. A sketchbook revealed Amélie's artistic talent, filled with pages of drawings, some happy, some anguished. A dusty trophy showed that despite everything at home, Lucas had tried hard at school. When they finally finished, the afternoon sun was high in the sky. Jean-Pierre felt emotionally exhausted, but strangely invigorated. Every object, every photo, every unsent letter painted a more complete picture of Céline and the children. "What do we do now?" he asked Elise as they closed the apartment door. "I think it's time to share some of these findings with Amélie and Lucas," Elise replied. "It might help them process their feelings and maybe give us more clues about Céline's whereabouts." That afternoon, at the shelter, Jean-Pierre and Elise sat down with the children, carefully showing them some photos and drawings they had found. The reaction was immediate and intense. Amélie clutched a photo of Céline smiling, silent tears streaming down her face. Lucas grew fascinated by his sister's old drawings, pointing out details he remembered. "That was Mum's favorite blouse," he said, indicating a sketch. "She said it brought luck." Jean-Pierre watched attentively, noting every reaction, every whispered comment between the siblings. It was painful, but also a release. The children were finally talking about their life before. It was Amélie who asked the question hanging in the air. "Have you found Mummy?" Jean-Pierre glanced at Elise before answering softly. "Not yet, sweetheart, but we're getting closer. Can you remember anything else about the last days with her? Any detail might be important." The children grew thoughtful. Then Lucas spoke. "She talked a lot about a special place, a place where we'd be safe." Amélie nodded eagerly. "Yes, she said it was our secret, just ours." Jean-Pierre's heart raced. Could this be the clue they needed? Do you remember anything else about that place? Any small detail? The children frowned, concentrating. There was water, Amélie said at last. Mummy talked about the sound of water. Elise made quick notes, her mind already working through possibilities. Excellent. Children, you're being very brave and helping us a lot. Leaving the shelter, Jean-Pierre felt a sense of renewal despite the day's emotional turmoil. The memories of the abandoned home, the children's reactions, all these pieces formed a complex puzzle. I think we're on the right track, Elise, he said as they got in the car. Every piece we find brings us closer to Céline. Elise nodded, a small smile on her lips. I agree, and our next stop is that convenience store. Who knows what else we might learn? As they drove through London streets, Jean-Pierre couldn't help feeling a mixture of hope and apprehension. The House of Memories had revealed so much: love, pain, hope, and despair. Somewhere out there, Céline awaited discovery, carrying her own burden of memories and regrets. The search continued, fueled by the desire to heal broken hearts and reunite a shattered family. Jean-Pierre knew, deep down, that he wouldn't rest until every last piece of the puzzle was in place. Night fell over London, transforming the city of lights into a labyrinth of shadows and secrets. Jean-Pierre and Elise walked through the narrow streets of one of the city's rougher districts, their eyes alert to every face, every movement in the darkness. This is the third bar tonight, Jean-Pierre murmured, his voice tired yet determined. How much longer will we keep going? Elise, her experienced eyes scanning the street, answered without looking away, until we find something or run out of places to search. They entered another rundown bar, the air heavy with smoke and despair. Jean-Pierre showed Céline's photo to the bartender, who only shook his head. Another dead end. Meanwhile, at the shelter on the other side of town, Amélie and Lucas sat together, surrounded by paper and crayons. The social worker, Marie, watched with interest as the children drew furiously. "What are you drawing?" she asked gently. Amélie held up her drawing, a female figure surrounded by a golden glow. "It's Mummy," she explained. "She's glowing because she's going to be okay and come back to us." Lucas, for his part, showed a darker drawing, a woman alone in a dark street. "I think she's lost," he said quietly, "but Jean-Pierre will find her, won't he?" Marie felt her heart tighten. "He's doing the best he can," she assured, hugging the children. Back on the streets, Jean-Pierre and Elise arrived at a hostel known for housing people without shelter. The place was crowded, the air thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and cheap disinfectant. While Jean-Pierre showed Céline's photo to the staff, Elise noticed an elderly woman in the corner, watching them with interest. "Madam," Elise approached cautiously, "by any chance do you recognize this woman?" She showed Céline's photo. The old woman frowned, her eyes lighting up with recognition. "Oh yes," she said in a raspy voice. "The sad lady. She was here a few weeks ago." Jean-Pierre quickly joined them, his heart racing. "Are you sure? What else can you tell us about her?" The woman nodded slowly. "She talked a lot about her children, twins," she said, "showed photos to anyone who would look." She paused, her eyes distant. "She cried a lot at night, said she wanted to stay sober, be a good mother. But the demon in the bottle, he's strong, you know." Jean-Pierre felt a knot forming in his throat. "Do you know where she went?" The old woman shook her head. "She left one night, said she had something important to do. Never saw her again, but—" She hesitated. "But what?" Elise pressed gently. "She mentioned something about a special place. A place where the water sings, that's what she said. Didn't make much sense to me at the time." Jean-Pierre and Elise exchanged meaningful glances, remembering what Amélie and Lucas had said about the special place with water. Thanking the woman, they left the hostel, their minds spinning with the new information. "This is the first solid lead we've had in days," Elise commented, her tone mixing relief and worry. Jean-Pierre nodded, feeling torn between hope and fear. "Yes, but what will we find? In what state will she be?" Elise placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We can't think about that now. We have to focus on finding her first." Deciding to widen the search, Elise made some calls to old contacts at the police. Soon, Extra patrols were assigned to areas known for sheltering people in need, all on the lookout for a woman matching Céline's description. As the night wore on, Jean-Pierre and Elise continued their tireless search. Every dark alley, every dim corner could hide Céline. The city seemed larger and more threatening than ever. During a brief pause, sitting in a 24-hour cafe, Jean-Pierre expressed his concerns. What if we find her and she doesn't want help? What if she's not in any condition to care for the children? Elise studied him for a moment before replying, Jean-Pierre, we must be prepared for every possibility. Our priority should be Amélie and Lucas's well-being. But we also can't give up on Céline. She deserves a chance at redemption if she's willing to take it. Elise's words weighed on Jean-Pierre. He thought of the children, their drawings full of hope and fear. He thought of Céline, lost in the streets, bearing the weight of her mistakes and regrets. You're right, he said finally. No matter what we find, we have to do what's best for all of them. With renewed determination, they returned to the streets. The early hours found them scouring London's darkest corners, showing Céline's photo to anyone who might have seen her. It was almost dawn when they received a promising call. One of Elise's police contacts had received a report of a woman matching Céline's description, seen near a fountain in Hyde Park. The water sings, Jean-Pierre murmured, recalling the old woman's words. Without wasting time, they headed for the park. The sky was turning pink as they arrived, the garden still quiet and empty except for a few early joggers. They approached the fountain, hearts pounding with anticipation, and there, huddled on a nearby bench, was a familiar figure. Céline, Jean-Pierre called softly. The woman raised her head, her red, swollen eyes widening with surprise and fear. For a moment, no one moved. Then, with a strangled sob, Céline tried to get up to flee. Jean-Pierre took a step forward, hands raised in a peaceful gesture. It's all right, Céline. We don't want to hurt you. We came to help. Amélie and Lucas. They miss you. Hearing her children's names, Céline collapsed back onto the bench, tears streaming down her face. My babies, she whispered. Are they okay? Do they hate me? Elise approached carefully. They are safe, Céline, and they love you. They're waiting for you. Céline looked at them, her eyes a mix of hope and fear. I want to see them, but not like this. I'm not worthy of them. Not like this. Jean-Pierre knelt before her, his voice gentle but firm. Then let's help you get better. Together. You're not alone in this, Céline. For a long moment, Céline just stared at them, as if deciding whether she could trust them or herself. Finally, with a small nod, she extended a trembling hand. Jean-Pierre helped her up, shocked at how light she was. As they gently guided her out of the park, he exchanged a look with Elise. Both knew this was only the first step in a long journey, but as the sun rose over London, bringing a new day full of possibilities, Jean-Pierre felt a wave of hope. They had found Céline. Now, the real work of healing and reunion could begin. Somewhere in the city, two children slept on, their dreams finally free of nightmares, as if they could sense their mother had been found, and that, maybe, just maybe, things would finally start to get better. The alley was narrow and foul-smelling, hidden between two abandoned buildings in a London suburb. Jean-Pierre and Elise advanced cautiously, their eyes searching every shadow, every heap of trash. The tip they'd received from a local homeless man led them here, with the promise that a woman matching Céline's description had been seen in recent days. There, Elise whispered, pointing to a figure slumped against the wall at the alley's end. Jean-Pierre's heart leapt into his throat as they approached. It was Céline, undoubtedly, but she was almost unrecognizable. Her once shiny hair was tangled and dirty. Her clothes were torn and stained, and she shivered uncontrollably despite the day's warmth. Céline? Jean-Pierre called softly, kneeling a short distance away. Céline's eyes snapped open, wide and fearful. She tried to scoot away, pressing herself harder against the wall. It's all right, Jean-Pierre continued, keeping his voice calm and gentle. We won't hurt you. We're here to help. Amélie and Lucas are worried about you. At the mention of her children's names, Céline froze. Tears began to stream down her dirty face. My babies, she murmured, her voice hoarse and broken. I abandoned them. I'm a monster. Elise approached slowly, crouching beside Jean-Pierre. "You're not a monster, Céline. You're sick and you need help. Let us help you." For long moments, Céline simply stared at them, her body still trembling. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. Jean-Pierre exhaled in relief. "Let's get you out of here, okay? We'll take you somewhere safe where you can get care." Carefully, they helped Céline stand. She could barely support herself, weakened by malnutrition and dehydration. Jean-Pierre picked her up in his arms, shocked by how light she was. On the way to the hospital, Elise made several calls, handling the legal formalities and informing authorities of Céline's whereabouts. Jean-Pierre, for his part, kept his eyes on Céline, who had fallen into a restless sleep in the back seat. At the hospital, a medical team was waiting. They quickly took Céline for evaluation, leaving Jean-Pierre and Elise in the waiting room. "What do we do now?" Jean-Pierre asked, running his hands through his hair in frustration and concern. Elise placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Now we wait. The doctors will do what they can for her. In the meantime, we need to think about how to handle the children." Jean-Pierre nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. "How do we tell them? They'll want to see her immediately, but in her current state, maybe it's best to wait until she's a bit more stable," Elise suggested. "We can tell the children we found her and that she's receiving help, but without going into detail yet." After what felt like an eternity, a doctor approached them. His expression was serious. "Mr. Dubois, I'm Dr. Moreau. I'd like to speak with you about Ms. Céline." Jean-Pierre stood up immediately. "How is she, doctor?" Dr. Moreau sighed. "She's stable, but her condition is serious. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, and signs of prolonged alcohol abuse. We also suspect potential liver issues. We'll need more tests." Jean-Pierre felt his heart sink. "What's the next step?" "I strongly recommend admission to a rehabilitation clinic once she's medically stable," the doctor replied. "The road to recovery will be long and difficult. She'll need constant support." Jean-Pierre nodded firmly. "I'll make the necessary arrangements. Cost is no issue. I want her to receive the best possible treatment." In the days that followed, Jean-Pierre divided his time between the hospital, where Céline slowly began to recover physically, and the shelter, where Amélie and Lucas waited. On the advice of professionals, he told the children a softened version of the truth. "We found your mother," he said gently, as the twins looked at him with hope and fear. "She's sick and needs to stay in the hospital for a while to get better, but she loves you very much and is eager to see you when she's stronger." Amélie and Lucas absorbed the news in silence, their small faces reflecting a complex mix of emotions. "Can we visit her?" Lucas finally asked. Jean-Pierre hesitated. "Not yet, little one. The doctors need to take care of her first. But I promise, as soon as it's possible, I'll take you to see her." As the children processed the news, Jean-Pierre faced a whirlwind of his own emotions. Relief at having found Céline, concern for her health, anxiety about the children's future, and a growing determination to see this family reunited and healed. The path ahead would be long and full of obstacles, he knew. Céline's recovery would require strength, patience, and constant support. The children would need time to adjust and rebuild their relationship with their mother, but looking at Amélie and Lucas, seeing the hope in their eyes despite everything, Jean-Pierre felt certain in his heart. No matter how difficult it was, he would be there for this family every step of the way. From rock bottom, there was only one direction, upwards, towards light and healing. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains of the rehabilitation clinic, casting a gentle glow over Céline's pale face. She sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes fixed on a photo of Amélie and Lucas that Jean-Pierre had brought. Her hands trembled slightly, a constant reminder of her battle against addiction. "How are you feeling today?" Jean-Pierre asked softly, taking a seat in the chair beside the bed. Céline raised her eyes, a mixture of shame and gratitude in her gaze. "Physically or emotionally?" she responded with a sad smile. "Physically, I'm better. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster." Jean-Pierre nodded understandingly. In the weeks since her admission, he had witnessed Céline's ups and downs, days of determination followed by nights of despair and regret. "The doctors say you're making remarkable progress," he encouraged her. And Amélie and Lucas ask about you every day. At the mention of her children, Céline's eyes filled with tears. How are they, really? Jean-Pierre hesitated, weighing honesty and kindness. They're adjusting. There are good days and bad days. They miss you, but they're also confused and sometimes angry. Céline nodded slowly, absorbing the information. I hurt them so much, she whispered. How can I ever fix that? One day at a time, Jean-Pierre replied gently. That's why you're here, remember, to get better, for them and for yourself. Meanwhile, at the shelter, Amélie and Lucas were having a session with the child psychologist, Dr. Sophie. The news that their mother had been found and was receiving treatment had unleashed a torrent of emotions. I'm glad Mum is safe, Amélie said, drawing furiously on a piece of paper. But what if she leaves us again? Lucas, stacking blocks, suddenly knocked them over. She promised she'd come back before. Why should we believe her now, Dr. Sophie observed the children closely. It's normal to feel mixed emotions, she explained. You love your mother, but you're also hurt and scared. All of these feelings are valid. Back at the clinic, the medical team discussed Céline's progress with Jean-Pierre. She's responding well to treatment, Dr. Leclerc explained, but the journey is far from over. We're working not only on physical detoxification, but also on the underlying emotional issues that led to her addiction. What about a reunion with the children? Jean-Pierre asked. Dr. Martinez, the team psychologist, intervened. We're gradually preparing Céline for that. It's crucial that she be emotionally stable before a reunion. We also recommend family therapy sessions before and after. Jean-Pierre absorbed all the information, feeling the weight of the responsibility he had taken on. He wondered if he was doing the right thing by involving himself so deeply. That night, he met with Elise at a cafe near the clinic. How are you handling all this, Jean-Pierre? Elise asked, studying his tired face. He sighed deeply. Honestly, I'm exhausted, emotionally and physically, but I can't walk away. Those children, Céline, they've become so important to me. Elise nodded sympathetically. You've grown attached to them. It's natural, but it also brings complications. What kind of complications? Jean-Pierre asked, though he suspected the answer. Legal ones, to start with, Elise explained. You have no official ties to this family. If Céline fully recovers, she'll have every right to regain full custody. And if she doesn't, well, authorities might question your ongoing involvement. Jean-Pierre felt a knot form in his stomach. The thought of being separated from Amélie and Lucas was too painful to consider. And emotionally, Elise continued, you need to prepare for all scenarios, including stepping back if it's best for the family. Jean-Pierre knew Elise was right, but the truth was hard to accept. What do you think I should do? Elise thought for a moment before answering. Keep offering your support, but start thinking long-term. Maybe it's time to consult a family law attorney to understand your options and limitations. In the following days, Jean-Pierre continued his routine, visiting the clinic and the shelter. He watched Céline's slow but steady progress and observed subtle changes in Amélie and Lucas's behavior. One afternoon, as he read them a story at the shelter, Lucas looked at him seriously. Jean-Pierre, he asked, are you going to stay with us even after Mum comes back? The question caught Jean-Pierre off guard. He hesitated, aware of the weight of his answer. I'll always be here for you, in one way or another, he finally replied. But the most important thing is that your mother is working very hard to get better and come back to you. Amélie, who had been listening closely, added, Can we have you and Mummy? Jean-Pierre's heart clenched at the innocence and hope in her voice. We'll see how things unfold, dear, he said softly. What matters is that you are both loved and cared for. Leaving the shelter that night, Jean-Pierre knew he had difficult decisions ahead, but gazing at the stars in London's sky, he made a silent promise. No matter what happened, he would do everything possible to ensure a better future for Amélie, Lucas, Das and Céline. The long road back had only just begun, but Jean-Pierre was determined to travel it to the end wherever it led him. The autumn sun bathed the rehabilitation clinic's visiting room in a golden light, creating an almost unreal atmosphere for what was about to happen. Céline, hands trembling slightly, nervously adjusted her blouse. 3 months of intensive treatment had transformed the broken woman Jean-Pierre found into someone almost unrecognizable, healthier, stronger, with a determined glow in her eyes. "Are you ready for this?" Jean-Pierre asked gently, placing a reassuring hand on Céline's shoulder. She took a deep breath, nodding, "As ready as I can be." "My God, Jean-Pierre, what if they hate me?" Before he could answer, the door opened. Amélie and Lucas entered hesitantly, their eyes wide and fixed on Céline. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. Then, with a strangled sob, Céline opened her arms. "My babies." The children ran to her, the three of them merging into a tight embrace, tears flowing freely. Jean-Pierre watched, feeling his own throat tighten with emotion. "Mummy, are you going to be okay now?" Amélie asked, her voice small and hopeful. Céline stroked her daughter's hair. "I'm working very hard to get better, my love. I promise I'm doing my best." Lucas, always the more cautious one, stepped back, studying his mother's face. "You're not going to leave us again?" The question hit Céline like a punch. She swallowed hard, fighting to keep her composure. "Never again, Lucas. I'm here to stay, if you both will have me." The rest of the visit was an emotional roller coaster. Moments of joy and connection interspersed with tough questions and uncomfortable silences. Jean-Pierre observed, ready to intervene if necessary, but allowing the family to navigate this crucial moment on their own. When the children finally left, promising to return soon, Céline collapsed into a chair, exhausted but visibly relieved. "They don't hate me," she whispered, almost in disbelief. Jean-Pierre smiled, feeling optimistic for the first time in months. "Of course not. They love you, Céline. They always have." In that calm moment following the emotional storm, the unexpected happened. The door to the visiting room opened abruptly, and a man entered, his eyes scanning until they fixed on Céline. "Antoine?" Céline gasped, her face losing all color. Jean-Pierre stood up instinctively, placing himself between Céline and the newcomer. "Who are you?" he demanded. The man, Antoine, ignored Jean-Pierre, his gaze locked on Céline. "So it's true. You're alive. And the children?" Céline seemed in shock. "How? You were supposed to be dead. They told me you were dead." Jean-Pierre intervened, his voice firm. "Sir, I must ask you to leave. This is a private visit." "I'm the children's father," Antoine interrupted, finally looking at Jean-Pierre, "and I'm here to claim my rights." The room fell silent in stunned disbelief. Céline trembled visibly, all the confidence she had moments ago evaporating. "You abandoned us," she finally managed, her voice shaking. "Years ago. Why now? Why come back now?" Antoine sighed heavily. "It's a long story. Debts, dangerous people. I had to disappear to protect you, but now I'm back, and I want my family back." Jean-Pierre felt his world spin. All their progress, all their plans, they were now threatened by this unexpected development. "I think we all need to calm down," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "There's a lot to discuss, but this is neither the time nor the place." At that moment, Elise entered the room, alerted by the clinic's security staff. She quickly assessed the tense situation. "Sir," she addressed Antoine, "I strongly suggest you leave now. We can arrange a proper meeting to discuss this situation, but at the moment, you are disrupting a patient's treatment." Antoine hesitated, his eyes flicking between Céline and the others. Finally, he nodded stiffly. "Fine, but this isn't over. I'll be back with my lawyer. Those are my children too." After Antoine left, Céline broke into uncontrollable sobs. Jean-Pierre hugged her, giving Elise a worried glance. "We need to act quickly," Elise said, already dialing her phone. "I'll start digging into Antoine's past immediately. Jean-Pierre, stay with Céline. She can't relapse now." In the hours that followed, the clinic turned into a crisis center. The medical team was called to evaluate Céline's emotional state, while Jean-Pierre and Elise worked frantically to understand this new dynamic. "What about the children?" Jean-Pierre asked, realization hitting him. "How do we tell them?" Elise sighed heavily, very carefully. "They've already endured so many changes. This could destabilize them completely." As night fell, Jean-Pierre found himself alone for a moment, looking out the clinic's window at London's lights. He felt lost, questioning his place in this family he'd come to care so much about. "What do I do now?" he murmured to himself. "Where do I fit in all this?" There were no easy answers. Antoine's unexpected return had thrown everything into chaos, but one thing Jean-Pierre knew for certain: he would not abandon Céline, Amélie, and Lucas now. No matter what lay ahead, he would fight for them. With that resolve in mind, he turned to face the challenges the coming days would surely bring. The battle for the family he had grown to love was only beginning. Lawyer Maître Dupint's office buzzed with activity. Jean-Pierre, Elise, and a team of attorneys were gathered, discussing strategies and reviewing documents. Antoine's return had unleashed a legal storm that threatened to engulf everyone. "The situation is delicate," Maître Dupont explained, his tired eyes behind glasses. "Antoine has legal rights as the biological father, but his prolonged absence works against him. On the other hand, Céline's condition and recent history are also problematic." Jean-Pierre ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "What about the children? Shouldn't they be the priority here?" "Legally, their well-being is paramount," the lawyer assured, "but defining what's best in this complex situation is where it gets tricky." Meanwhile, at the rehabilitation clinic, Céline faced her own battle. Antoine's return had shaken her recovery, bringing back old traumas and insecurities. "I'm scared," she confessed to her therapist, Dr. Moreau. "What if I'm not strong enough? What if the pressure is too much and I relapse?" Dr. Moreau looked at her firmly. "Céline, you are stronger than you think. Remember everything you've overcome. This is just another challenge, and you have allies by your side." At the shelter, Amélie and Lucas struggled to process the news about their father. The social worker, Marie, tried to help them navigate their turbulent emotions. "I don't even remember him," Lucas murmured, hugging his teddy bear. "How can he be our father?" Amélie's, on the other hand, oscillated between curiosity and fear. "What if he's bad? What if he tries to take us away from Mum or from Jean-Pierre?" Marie hugged them gently. "No one will take you away. All the adults involved want what's best for you. I promise your opinion will be heard." As days passed, more details about Antoine's past came to light. Elise, using her detective experience, uncovered a web of debts, failed businesses, and shady connections. "He wasn't lying about running from dangerous people," Elise reported to Jean-Pierre, "but there's more to the story. Antoine seems to have a pattern of making impulsive choices and then running from the consequences." Jean-Pierre absorbed the information, feeling a mix of pity and anger for Antoine. Does he really think he can just come back and claim a family he abandoned? The legal battle intensified as Antoine hired his own lawyers, demanding visitation rights. Jean-Pierre, acting as a de facto guardian, resisted, insisting that any contact be gradual and supervised. Finally, the custody hearing day arrived. The courtroom was tense, emotions running high. Céline, pale but determined, sat beside her lawyer. Antoine, in an ill-fitting suit, looked nervous but resolute. Jean-Pierre, in the middle, felt the weight of his self-imposed responsibilities. The judge, a middle-aged woman with perceptive eyes, listened attentively to each party. Antoine spoke first, his voice trembling with emotion. "I know I made terrible mistakes, but I love my children. I always have. Everything I did was to protect them. Now I want the chance to be the father they deserve." Céline, when it was her turn, fought to remain composed. "I'm not perfect. I battled my own demons, but I'm recovering. For Amélie and Lucas, they are my life, my reason to go on. Please, don't take them from me." Jean-Pierre spoke last. He described how he met the children, their condition when he found them, and the journey they had all taken since then. "I'm not their biological father," he concluded, "but I love them as if they were my own. All I ask is that today's decision prioritizes the emotional and physical well-being of Amélie and Lucas above all else." The most tense moment came when the children were called for a private interview with the judge. Amélie and Lucas entered, holding hands, their little faces a mixture of fear and determination. When they emerged nearly an hour later, the judge seemed emotionally affected. She called a recess to consider everything she had heard. The verdict, when finally delivered, tried to balance the interests of all parties. Considering the exceptional circumstances of this case, the judge announced, I determine the following. Mrs. Céline will retain primary custody of the children, conditional upon continuing her treatment and maintaining sobriety. Mr. Antoine will have supervised visitation rights, gradually increasing as he demonstrates stability and commitment. Mr. Jean-Pierre Dubois, given his proven importance in the children's lives, is granted legal guardian status, allowing him to continue actively participating in their lives and decisions. The courtroom erupted in mixed reactions. Céline wept with relief. Antoine seemed torn between disappointment and hope, and Jean-Pierre felt a rush of conflicting emotions. As people began to disperse, Jean-Pierre found himself face to face with Antoine. Thank you, Antoine said unexpectedly, for taking care of them when I couldn't or wouldn't. Jean-Pierre, surprised, only nodded. They're incredible kids. They deserve all the love and stability we can give. Leaving the courthouse, Jean-Pierre found Amélie and Lucas waiting anxiously with Marie. Seeing him, the children ran into his arms. Is everything okay now? Amélie asked, her eyes large and hopeful. Jean-Pierre hugged them tightly, feeling the weight and joy of his new official responsibility. It will be, he promised. We'll all work to make it okay. Walking together out of the courthouse, toward an uncertain but full of possibility future, Jean-Pierre reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought him here. The battle for the family was not over. In many ways, it was only beginning. But for the first time in months, he felt true hope blooming in his heart. This improvised and imperfect family, united by love and adversity, now had a real chance at healing and happiness, and Jean-Pierre was determined to do his part to make that a reality. The golden autumn leaves danced in the air, symbolizing the changes unfolding in the lives of Céline, Antoine, Amélie, Lucas, and Jean-Pierre. The judge's decision, proposing shared custody with strict conditions, had set the stage for a new chapter in their intertwined lives. Céline, determined to maintain her sobriety and prove her worth as a mother, dove even deeper into her treatment. Therapy sessions now included not only her struggle against addiction, but also the complexities of co-parenting with Antoine and navigating their new family dynamics. It's hard, she admitted to Jean-Pierre during one of his regular visits to the clinic. Some days the weight of it all feels crushing. But then I think of Amélie and Lucas, and I find strength I never knew I had. Antoine, for his part, faced his own challenges. Rebuilding a relationship with children who barely knew him was daunting. His first supervised visits were tense and awkward. They look at me like I'm a stranger, he confided to his counselor, and in a way, I am. How can I make up for years of absence? The counselor's answer was patience, consistency, and time. Antoine began showing up religiously for every scheduled visit, always with small gifts and stories about his life. Slowly, very slowly, the children began to lower their guard. Jean-Pierre, now officially recognized as a guardian, found himself in a delicate role as mediator and supporter. He was there for Céline in her moments of doubt, for Antoine when frustration threatened to overwhelm him, and always, for Amélie and Lucas. How do you feel about all this? He asked the children during a walk in the park, about 2 months after the court's decision. Lucas kicked a stone, thoughtful. It's weird, he admitted. Having a dad all of a sudden. Sometimes it's nice, but sometimes it's scary, Amélie completed, holding Jean-Pierre's hand tightly. What if he goes away again? Or if Mum gets sick again? Jean-Pierre knelt down, meeting their eyes. It's normal to be afraid. A lot has changed. But I want you to know something. No matter what happens, I will always be here for you. And your mum and dad are working hard to be the best versions of themselves for you. Months passed, bringing small triumphs and inevitable setbacks. Céline had a moment of weakness during a stressful holiday, almost succumbing to the temptation to drink. But Jean-Pierre's quick intervention and the support of her group at the clinic kept her on track. Antoine, struggling to balance his desire to be a father with financial realities, accepted Jean-Pierre's offer of a job at one of his companies. The gesture not only provided Antoine stability, but also began to build a bridge of trust between the two men. Amélie and Lucas, as children often do, adapted to their new reality with surprising resilience. There were tears and moments of anger, of course. Nights when Amélie cried for her mother even when Céline was just a phone call away. Days when Lucas refused to speak to Antoine, hurt by years of absence. But there were also laughter, hugs, and genuine moments of connection. One day, during a trip to the zoo, the first outing with the whole family together, Amélie took Céline's and Antoine's hands, pulling them to see the penguins. The look of surprise and joy the parents exchanged over their daughter's head did not go unnoticed by Jean-Pierre, who watched from a distance, smiling. As the year drew to a close, the transformation in all of them was remarkable. Céline, now in an advanced stage of recovery, started working part-time as a counselor for others battling addiction. Her face, once marked by despair, now shone with a calm determination. Antoine, though still grappling with his past, had become a stable and reliable presence in the children's lives. He never missed a school meeting or a school play, determined to make up for lost time. And Jean-Pierre, he watched it all unfold with a mix of pride, love, and a touch of melancholy. His role was changing, evolving from a rescuer to something more subtle, yet no less important. When Christmas came, marking a year since that fateful night he found two children alone in Trafalgar Square, Jean-Pierre organized a celebration at his home. The tree glowed with colorful lights, the aroma of roast turkey filled the air, and the sound of laughter, something that seemed impossible a year ago, echoed through the halls. Céline, Antoine, Amélie, and Lucas arrived together, their cheeks rosy from the cold and excitement. The children ran to hug Jean-Pierre, almost knocking him over with their enthusiasm. "Merry Christmas, Jean-Pierre," they shouted in unison. The evening was filled with precious moments. Antoine, nervous but determined, read The Night Before Christmas to the children, his voice gaining confidence with each page. Céline, tears in her eyes, toasted to family and new beginnings. Jean-Pierre, observing everything, felt his heart overflow with emotion. After dinner, as the adults chatted in the living room, Amélie and Lucas approached Jean-Pierre with a large envelope. "We made something for you," Amélie said shyly. Inside the envelope was an elaborate drawing. In it, Amélie and Lucas stood at the center, holding hands. Céline and Antoine were on one side, smiling, and on the other side, as big and important as the others, was Jean-Pierre. "It's our family," Lucas explained. "Our big, weird family, but it's ours." Jean-Pierre felt tears forming in his eyes. "It's perfect," he whispered, hugging the children. "Absolutely perfect." Later that night, after everyone had gone, Jean-Pierre sat alone in his living room, contemplating the drawing and reflecting on the extraordinary year he had lived. A single act of kindness on a cold Christmas night had triggered a series of events that transformed not only his life, but also the lives of 4 other people in ways he never could have imagined. In that moment, looking at the drawing of this extended family, an idea began to form in Jean-Pierre's mind. A way to expand the impact of that initial kindness, to touch even more lives. In the months that followed, Jean-Pierre worked tirelessly to establish the New Beginnings Foundation. The organization would support families in crisis, offering resources, counseling, and above all, hope for those struggling to stay together in the face of adversity. The foundation's opening, held the following spring, was an emotional event. Céline, now completely sober and radiant, gave a moving speech about her journey. Antoine, standing at her side, nodded in support, his face a mix of pride and humility. Amélie and Lucas cut the inaugural ribbon, their bright smiles capturing the essence of what the foundation represented: hope and second chances. Jean-Pierre, watching the scene, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The path had not been easy, and he knew more challenges lay ahead. But looking at Céline, Antoine, Amélie, and Lucas, his improbable and wonderful family, he knew it had all been worth it. As the celebration continued around him, Jean-Pierre made a silent promise. He would continue to nurture and protect the family fate had given him, and through the New Beginnings Foundation, extend that opportunity for healing and redemption to others who needed it. The new beginning he had given one family now became a legacy of hope for many. And to Jean-Pierre, that was the true miracle of that Christmas night a year ago. The power of a single act of kindness to create waves of change that would reach far beyond anything he ever imagined.